Hey, everybody. That didn't sound too good. Hey, everybody. This is Bruce Collins. I'm the host of Bruce Collins Reacts and Stuff, where we take a look at strange, bizarre, interesting videos and then I comment on them. Now, in today's video, I wanted to talk about how I became a wrestling promoter and how you can do anything you want. There's an old saying by Ronald Reagan. He says, you can do anything you want as long as you don't care who gets the credit. And I think that's true. And in a broader sense, I would say you can do anything you want, but you may or may not be the mass success that you think you deserve to be. And so if you go into what you want to do with that premise, I think you will have a greater chance of success. And then your passion for what you do will ultimately ignite that money situation because people will see in you your enthusiasm. They may not see it directly. Let's say if you're doing something where you're behind the scenes, but they'll see the product, the outcome of your enthusiasm. And that will cause them to want your product or your service. And so for me, as a wrestling promoter, that sounds kind of weird, but I grew up watching it with my grandfather. And years later, I wanted to make some extra money. So I found a guy on the internet. This is back in the mid 90s. So the internet was pretty new. And he was drawing these cartoon figures of wrestlers. And I said, hey, those are pretty good. Can you make me some of those? And he charged me a certain amount of money. And I started putting those on t-shirts. And I went on eBay and I sold them. Now, don't copy my idea because nowadays eBay is has cracked down on those types of things because back in the day, you may have remembered this on the news, someone actually was trying to sell a grenade launcher on eBay once. And so you didn't have companies that were directly looking at eBay to see if any copyright material was going on. Is a picture of somebody like a caricature actually a copyrighted issue? Probably not. But when the companies have these representatives looking at things like eBay and they tell eBay, hey, you need to shut this person down, they're not going to let you sell it. Now back then they did, but years later I knew a person that was a really good artist and he drew this picture of Johnny Cash, a young Johnny Cash, and we didn't even put the name on the t-shirt, just the picture. And it looked like it was going to sell really good on eBay. And the Cash family estate stepped in and eBay said, you can't sell this. They sort of danced around that, copyright infringement and all that, but it's not really. But uh, what eBay says goes, right? If you can't sell, and they say you can't sell, you can't sell it. So that was a problem. That's a problem now. But back then I was able to do that. Once I started my business on eBay, I also put those t-shirts on a website. And somebody came across that website and said, hey, I've got this streaming wrestling show on the internet. It wasn't even a podcast. This was way before podcast. And they said, can we link our website to your website? And I said, of course, sure, no problem. And so, I hoped for more shirt sales. The sales were going fine. And in fact, they were going very well. And so a couple months later, I checked on that website, that wrestling broadcast, and it had turned into actually a wrestling company in Canada. So I contacted this person. I said, hey, you're running wrestling shows now. And he said, yeah. And I thought, well, that would be interesting. Can you show me how to do that? And so he did. He explained, you need liability insurance and all of the stuff. You might want to create a business license in your city and all of that. So I did all of that and I had wrestling shows. Now, ultimately, it wasn't a success, but it moved me on to other things. From that, I got into radio, which is because one of the wrestlers became the voice of Monster Garage. His name's Brett Wagner. Now, he wasn't the host. The host was Jesse James. But my friend, Brett Wagner, became the host of Monster Garage, or the voice of Monster Garage, which later translated into doing a radio opportunity called Monster Radio, which was syndicated in 83 markets. And I was on that show once a month. That's how that all started. Um, I have one interesting wrestling story. There was this one wrestler who was in a match, and we were at the San Jose Civic, and these guys brought chairs from the audience into the ring. And I thought, oh no, I'm going to have to pay for those if they break them. And the one guy body slammed the other guy onto the chairs, which fortunately they didn't break the chairs. But the guy who was the recipient of the body slam was now hanging off the ring apron with his arm draped down and couldn't move. And I thought it was a work, part of the performance. And finally somebody said to me, "Hey, he's not moving. You may want to get out there." So I went out there, and sure enough, he had some kind of a pinched nerve or something and could not move. And it was based on accumulated injuries, partly. And so he couldn't move. So the EMTs, we had an EMT on site. This was a big building, big auditorium. And the EMTs came and put him on a gurney. They literally had to roll him over, and his arm, which was draping off the ring apron, was now not moving. So when they rolled him, he's now laying flat on the gurney with his arm straight up, giving the audience a thumbs up like he's okay. It's kind of surreal. And they take the gurney out of the arena. So I'm figuring he's in the hospital, at the end of the show, he's probably in the hospital, recuperating, hopefully. But at the end of the show, I see this guy. It's a poorly lit hallway. I see this guy down at the end of the hallway walking towards me, just the silhouette, and he looks like a Frankenstein monster. And I'm like, what is going on? And it's this guy. And apparently he was out in the foyer of the building and wouldn't let them put him in the ambulance, saying, I'm okay, I'm okay. So finally they let him get up and leave. And he's backstage, and he comes up to me, and I'm thinking, is he mad at me? I'm fairly new. I'm green at this. So I'm thinking, is he mad at me? What's he going to say? And the only thing he said was, am I working tomorrow night? And I'm thinking, look at the shape you're in. Are you serious? So he did not work the next night. But that's one of my stories. But again, getting back on point here, you really can do anything you want to do. You just need to find people in that field and start asking questions. How did you get here? What did you do, to become what you became? What do you recommend I do? And really lean into needing a mentor for that, because all you don't have to be what you want to be is the facts, is the knowledge. And so you need to find that knowledge with people who know. Now you're going to get some rejections, but ultimately someone will say, yes, I would be willing to help you with that. You would be surprised. The other thing is always be building. Look at the next opportunity. I went from a wrestling promoter to writing about wrestling, and not just writing about the good things I did, but all the mistakes I made. I wrote a book about how to be a promoter, and it was on Amazon. I don't recommend that book. I'm not trying to sell it, but it was a niche book because promoters never wanted to tell people how to promote because they were very protective of their industry. So if you can build on, like, the wrestling promoter, the t-shirts were a plus, wrestling promoter was a failure, the wrestling book was a success, and now I would say my radio stuff, as well as being here on YouTube, is a success also. So don't let failure be the ultimate outcome. Keep building. What do I do next? How do I turn this expertise, this business, into multiple channels that I can make money from? And not to be unethical about it. I'm not saying lie to people or make up stuff. That's wrong. I don't approve of that. But you will find that opportunities beget opportunities if you let them. So anyway, that's my story. That's how I became a professional wrestling promoter. What is it? What's your dream? What do you want to become? Comment below. I'd really love to see what you say. I'd really love to hear from you. Thank you for listening today. I really hope you have a great day. Take care.